The wife never would have imagined her husband would actually take her out for beef noodle soup. She even praised her husband for being such a good man. What she didn't know was that every single one of the man's actions had been carefully rehearsed and practiced. Even this time was deliberately meant to distract his wife, because underneath his workshop, he was holding captive a childhood friend, who also happened to be a journalist. His perfect husband image had never once made his wife suspicious. Even just earlier in his workshop, when she discovered broken glass fragments on the floor, her husband casually said he had accidentally dropped and broken something. His wife believed him without a second thought. What she didn't know was that it was actually from when he and his friend had fought earlier. Keep in mind his wife was a detective, and she would never suspect her own husband. That night, when his wife woke up in the middle of the night, she discovered her husband wasn't beside her. The time was 3:30 a.m. She thought her husband might be in the living room, but found the house unusually quiet. Just then, their front door was opened by someone. She saw a figure in a raincoat slowly approaching. When the man removed his hood, his wife finally breathed a sigh of relief. Her husband's explanation was, he had specially bought her beer and fried chicken. His wife didn't doubt this explanation at all. She even praised her husband for becoming more and more thoughtful. The next morning, a murder occurred at a restaurant. Seeing the victim's brutal condition, Ji-won couldn't help but remark how cruel it was. Fortunately, there was a security camera overhead, so the police began reviewing the surveillance footage. After watching it, Ji-won's eyes widened. Although she couldn't make out the person's face, that raincoat looked very familiar. It made her involuntarily think her husband had come home wearing a raincoat last night, but Ji-won quickly dismissed any suspicion of her husband. First, her husband was too gentle. Second, before the incident, the victim had left a voice message for a journalist, saying someone named Hyun-soo had been threatening him recently. Halfway through his message, an unexpected visitor appeared outside his door.
동현수가 나타났어. 내가 머리채 품을 목사로 나타나.
When he tried to grab a tool to defend himself, it was already too late. At this time, police also traced the last phone call to a journalist named Kim. Strangely enough, his phone had been turned off this entire time. Actually, journalist Kim was already being held captive at this point, and it was by her husband, Baek Hee-sung, whose real name was Hyun-soo. He then used a password to enter the journalist's home. Under interrogation, he learned the information about him was stored on the computer. After searching, he found it wasn't actually information about him. He became furious that he had been lied to. In fact, the journalist had indeed used delaying tactics to buy time for self-rescue. To get to the bottom of the case, Ji-won went to journalist Kim's home. Strangely, there seemed to be no one home, and yesterday's lunchbox was still sitting outside the door. Sensing something was wrong, Ji-won had firefighters start breaking down the door. Inside the house, Hyun-soo saw it was his own wife. His pupils immediately dilated. When they broke in, they searched every corner of the home, but found no trace of journalist Kim. What they didn't know was that there was a figure standing straight outside the window. Keep in mind this was on the 18th floor. It must be said that Hyun-soo's skills were incredibly impressive, but even the most impressive skills have their limits. A sudden sound made Ji-won become alert. At this moment, a young boy downstairs was staring intently at this scene.
도둑이야, 도둑! 도둑이야!
The man is wearing cheap white sneakers. He's hanging outside an 18th floor building. A little boy spots him from below.
도둑이야, 도둑!
His mother rushes over asking her son what happened. The boy says he saw Spider-Man looking up in that direction. There's no one in sight. It turns out the man had a quick idea to call his detective wife Ji-won inside. He tells her there's a reporter at home looking for her. His wife gets distracted and leaves. That's how he manages to escape. This is reporter Kim's house. Reporter Kim is being held captive in the basement. He's now got a major headache trying to figure out how to explain this. So he starts searching through the reporter's camera. He knows the camera must contain some of the reporter's private secrets. Sure enough, he finds the reporter's weakness. Then he heads back to his own shop first. As soon as he opens the basement door and enters, he gets ambushed by the imprisoned reporter. But clearly the reporter is no match for him. To survive, reporter Kim can only fight back desperately. The two men start wrestling with each other. At this moment, his wife also arrives at the shop. As soon as she opens the door, she runs into her husband. She asks with concern about the injury on his face. Reporter Kim comes out from inside. Ji-won looks curiously at the equally injured reporter. She bandages her husband's wound, then picks up the handcuffs from the table. She arrests the reporter on the spot for assault charges. The reporter panics and immediately asks Hyun-soo for help. Hyun-soo loyally explains that it was his fault. He saw the guy wouldn't leave the shop, thought he was a bad guy, so he pushed him hard. That's what caused the misunderstanding between them. But his wife tells him to stop lying. Being a good person also has its limits. The reporter rolls his eyes in frustration after hearing this. If this guy is a good person, then there are no bad people in this world. Ji-won's contemptuous look leaves the reporter feeling helpless.
기레기라고 생각했지 지금, 그지? 와, 내가 진짜 할 말은 많은데 내가 할 말이 없다.
It turns out the two had just reached an agreement. The reporter will help keep Hyun-soo's real identity secret, and he will help the reporter keep the video footage confidential. Once the video content is exposed, it would ruin the reporter's life. Who would have thought Hyun-soo was such a good actor? No wonder his wife doesn't suspect him at all. Since the victim's last phone call was a voicemail to the reporter, they learned from the reporter that the deceased was very afraid of Hyun-soo. They got the same answer from the victim's wife. In the middle of the night, her husband always received threatening calls from someone named Hyun-soo. She also said Hyun-soo and her husband used to work together at a restaurant. To better understand Hyun-soo, they found the restaurant where Hyun-soo used to work. From the chef, they learned that Hyun-soo was not only heartless but also ungrateful. The chef said, "I once accidentally fell down outside. Instead of helping me up, he stood there laughing. I still can't forget the look on his face." This answer was consistent with what reporter Kim said. Hyun-soo indeed has antisocial personality disorder. All signs point to a high possibility that Hyun-soo committed the crime. But so far, no one knows Hyun-soo's whereabouts. It turns out he's been living under someone else's identity, married with children, and he has a detective wife who's investigating him. This time, reporter Kim, who was Hyun-soo's childhood friend, suddenly discovers that something about the case doesn't quite add up.